Hi everyone! シャドーイングコアラです。今日の英語で雑学は Wait, nobody knew how anesthesia worked until 2020? 今回のエピソードでは驚くべき麻酔の謎に迫ります。2020年まで誰も知らなかったその仕組みを一緒に探ってみましょう。では、Let's Shadowing!
Picture this. You're about to have surgery. They put a mask on you.Just relax, they say. Count backwards from 10. 10, 9, 8, and it's over. No dream. No sense of time passing. Just nothing. And then you're staring at the ceiling of a recovery room. Every single day, tens of thousands of people around the world step into that nothing and come back out. It's one of the most routine things in modern medicine. And here's the part that should genuinely mess with you.Until 2020, nobody could actually explain why general anesthesia makes you lose consciousness. We were using something we didn't understand. On the operating table. In life or death situations. All over the planet. For over 150 years. When you stop and think about it, that's a little terrifying, right? Today we're going to follow the whole story. How that mystery was finally cracked open.By a microscope that can see things we were never supposed to see. Let's start with the misconception everyone has. General anesthesia is basically just a really deep sleep, right? Nope. And that's the first shock of the day. According to Emory Brown, an anesthesiologist at Harvard, the anesthetized state is nothing like sleep. On a brain scan, the activity drops all the way down to something closer to a reversible coma. When you're asleep,the different regions of your brain still chatter to each other. That's why you dream, and why a loud noise can wake you up. But under anesthesia, those regions stop talking. The whole communication network just switches off. People who've experienced it describe it the same way. It was like someone flipped a switch. With sleep, there's at least a vague sense of, oh, it's morning already.With anesthesia, your consciousness genuinely vanishes, which is why it's often described as the closest thing a living person can experience to death. A few hours in the void with a return ticket in your hand. Strange as that sounds, here's the real question. What's actually happening inside your body to flip that switch? Because figuring that out took humanity more than 150 years. So when did anesthesia even show up?Surprisingly recently. It only came into real use in the mid-1800s. And surgery before that point was, to put it gently, a nightmare. There was no way to stop the pain. The patient was fully awake, thrashing in agony, screaming. The surgeon couldn't concentrate, so of course the blade wandered. Back then, surgery was a last resort, which usually meant a near-certain death sentence.So the single most prized skill in a surgeon wasn't precision. It was speed. Get it over with as fast as humanly possible. Shave even a second off the patient's suffering. That was what made a surgeon good. The legend here is the British surgeon Robert Liston, who could amputate a leg in a reported 28 seconds. At that point, it's less a medical procedure and more a speed run.And Liston comes with an even wilder bit of folklore, the 300% mortality operation. The story goes that he was moving so fast he accidentally sliced off his assistant's fingers, and a spectator died of sheer fright on the spot. Almost certainly exaggerated, but it tells you everything about the vibe of an operating room back then. What finally ended that nightmare was the birth of anesthesia.In 1846, an American dentist named William Morton publicly performed a pain-free operation using diethyl ether. The patient felt nothing. The surgery ended quietly. That was the dawn of modern anesthesia. And here's the fun part. Where he got the idea. At the time in America, there was a popular form of entertainment called the ether frolic, where people would inhale ether or nitrous oxide,laughing gas, to get giddy and woozy at parties. Basically, a 19th century rave. Morton looked at this and thought, everyone inhales this stuff and walks away perfectly fine. So, couldn't we use it for surgery? In other words, a party trick changed medicine. And with that, surgery finally graduated from torture to treatment. The end. Happily ever after. Except, of course, that's not where today's story ends. Because even after Morton, one enormous problem just refused to go away. Nobody could explain why breathing in ether switches off consciousness. The mechanism was a complete blank. It worked reliably. It was used every single day. But the why was a mystery. Imagine a magic seasoning that, for no known reason, makes any dish taste incredible, and every restaurant on Earth using it daily without a clue how it works. That was anesthesia. The first clue showed up around the year 1900, the Meyer-Overton correlation. The rule was simple: the more easily an anesthetic dissolves in fat, the stronger it works. And that was a huge hint. It suggested the target of anesthesia was somewhere fatty, the cell membrane that wraps every one of our cells. From there, scientists split into two camps and started a very, very long feud. One camp, the lipid theory. Anesthetics act on the fat itself in the cell membrane. The other camp, the protein theory. No, they bind directly to proteins sitting in the membrane. The trouble was, even if the lipids were changing, the change was too tiny to see at the molecular level with the tools of the time. We're pretty sure we know who did it. We just can't prove it. A detective drama stalemate. That dragged on for over 100 years. And then came the year it all broke open. 2020. A team at Scripps Research in the US, Richard Lerner, Scott Hansen, and their colleagues used a super-resolution microscope called D-Storm. Think of it as a security camera for the molecular world. It can peer into a nanoscale realm we could never see before. And with it, they finally filmed exactly what anesthetics were doing inside the cell membrane. But before the reveal, let's do a quick refresher on how a normal brain runs. Your brain works by neurons passing electrical signals down a relay line. When a neuron gets stimulated, a tunnel in its membrane called a sodium channel opens. Sodium ions rush in from outside the cell, and the inside of the neuron tips toward positive. That electrical shift passes to the next neuron and the next on down the line. As long as that relay keeps running, you're conscious. Now drop in an anesthetic, and that relay gets shut down at the root through a chain reaction like a Rube Goldberg machine, one piece knocking over the next. Here's the sequence D-Storm revealed. Domino 1. Breaking the order. The anesthetic slips into the cell membrane and scrambles the lipid rafts, neat orderly clusters of fat, throwing them into disarray. Domino 2. The enzyme escapes. Once that order collapses, an enzyme called PLD2 that was tucked inside the raft loses its home and leaks out. Domino 3. It builds the thing that presses the switch. The escaped PLD2 goes to work and produces a specific lipid phosphatidic acid. This is the finger that's about to press a button. Domino 4. A potassium emergency exit swings open. That finger pries open a normally closed potassium channel called TREC1. Potassium starts pouring out of the cell. Domino 5. The electrical relay halts. As potassium escapes, the voltage inside the cell sinks deep into the negative. And once that happens, those sodium channels from before can't open anymore. The relay of electrical signals goes dead. The result? The brain's communication network switches off and consciousness disappears. That was the switch we couldn't see for 150 years. Sure, but you just saw it under a microscope. Does it actually have anything to do with consciousness? Totally fair. Lerner thought the same thing. So the team turned to the fruit fly. When they removed that PLD2 enzyme from the flies became resistant to anesthesia. Pull out the first domino, and the chain never falls. That confirmed the thing they'd been watching under the lens really was tied to the loss of consciousness itself. Now, to be fair, one honest caveat. This is one major mechanism, discovered mainly for inhaled anesthetics, the kind you breathe in. In reality, several factors are probably tangled together, and it's not as if the mystery of anesthesia is 100% solved. But still, for over 150 years, humanity used this drug at the very edge of life and death without knowing why it worked. And now, at last, we've reached the heart of that mystery, with hard evidence. That's a genuinely huge step forward for the safety of medicine. And to leave you with one last thing to chew on. Something we didn't understand was being used routinely all over the world in situations where lives were on the line. We tend to imagine science as understand it completely, then use it. But in reality, it's far more often, we don't get how it works, but it reliably does, so we use it. We're surrounded by far more unknowns than we like to think. So next time you go under, remember this. Right now, inside your brain, a chain of nanoscale dominoes is quietly tipping over one after another.
コアラの英語メモ
Relax. Relax.
Routine things. Routine things.
Genuinely mess with you. Genuinely mess with you.
動画のどこに出てきたか探してみてくださいね。ご視聴ありがとうございました。チャンネル登録よろしくお願いします。